The sun was beginning to set over the long stretch of highway cutting through the Arizona desert. Heat waves danced above the asphalt, and the only sign of life for miles was a small roadside diner with a flickering neon sign that read, Linda's Home Grill. Inside, the air smelled of fresh coffee and pancakes, and the quiet hum of an old jukebox filled the room with soft country music. Steven Seagal pushed open the door gently and stepped inside. He wore simple clothes, a black t-shirt, faded jeans, and sunglasses tucked into his collar. No Hollywood entourage, no security, nothing flashy. He moved with the calm confidence of someone who didn't need anything more than his presence. Steven had been on a long solo drive, trying to unwind and enjoy the quiet, something he rarely got in his usual busy life. The waitress, a woman in her late 50s with kind eyes, greeted him with a sweet smile. "Sit anywhere you like, honey." Steven nodded politely and chose a corner booth facing the window. He preferred sitting where he could observe everything, a habit formed long before he ever became famous. He ordered a simple meal, black coffee, eggs, and toast. While waiting, he took in the peaceful atmosphere, the clinking of utensils, the soft conversation of two old truckers, the smell of fresh pie cooling behind the counter. Everything seemed calm, until the rumble started. A deep, growling thunder rolled from outside, the unmistakable sound of motorcycle engines approaching. Not one, not two, but several. They roared into the dirt parking lot like a storm arriving without warning. Heads turned. The truckers paused. Even the jukebox seemed quieter. A biker gang, 6 men dressed in leather vests, chains, and tattoos, swung open the door and strode inside like they owned the place. Their heavy boots clamped on the floor. Their loud laughter echoed. The energy in the diner shifted instantly. Steven didn't react. He kept sipping his coffee, eyes lowered, peaceful as ever. But the bikers noticed him. A man sitting alone, calm, quiet, unfazed by their entrance. The kind of man they loved to provoke. One biker nudged another and smirked. "Look at this guy. Thinks he's some kind of tough guy." They had no idea who they were talking about, and they were just minutes away from making the biggest mistake of their lives. The diner, which had been quiet and peaceful moments earlier, now felt suffocated by the heavy presence of the biker gang. Their laughter was loud, their movements reckless, and every customer inside tried to look busy, staring at their plates, pretending not to notice them. But everyone felt the shift. The air was tense, like the calm before a lightning strike. The leader of the gang, a tall man with a thick beard, dark sunglasses, and arms covered in skull tattoos, strutted across the diner like he owned it. His vest read, "Ravens, Chapter Leader." He slapped the counter loudly with his hand. "Coffee," he barked at the waitress. "And keep it coming." His men spread out, occupying 3 tables as if they were marking territory. Boots on chairs, helmets thrown around, loud cursing, the kind of behavior that made families think twice before entering such places. But Steven Seagal sat there, unmoving, quiet, composed, sipping his coffee in slow, steady intervals. The bikers noticed. They noticed everything about him. How calm he was, how he didn't flinch when they entered, how he didn't shift in his seat to show fear or submission. That calmness irritated them more than any insult could. One of the younger bikers elbowed his friend and nodded towards Steven. "Look at him," he said mockingly. "Guy thinks he's some kind of monk." Steven kept eating his toast, unfazed. Another biker snickered. "Probably a wannabe tough guy. Old man vibes." The gang leader turned his head, following their gaze. Steven sat still, breathing evenly, not once acknowledging their attempts to provoke him. He didn't give them attention, and that, ironically, was the exact thing they couldn't stand. The leader smirked. "Let's see what the old guy's made of." He stood up and walked slowly towards Steven's booth, dragging his boots across the floor just to make noise. His men watched with anticipation, hungry for entertainment. Steven felt him approaching, not through sound, but through presence. Yet he continued eating, calm as a rock in the middle of a raging river. The leader stopped beside Steven's table. "You deaf, old man," he said. "Didn't you hear my boys talking to you?" Steven lifted his eyes slowly, just for a second, then went back to his plate. The biker chuckled. "Oh, look at that. Too cool to talk to us." Steven spoke finally, in his quiet, measured tone, the kind that didn't need to be loud to demand respect. "I'm just trying to eat in peace." The biker slapped the table so hard the plates rattled. "Well, guess what? We decide the peace around here." Across the diner, the waitress froze, gripping the coffee pot. The two truckers exchanged a worried glance. A young couple sitting in the back held each other's hands nervously. But Steven didn't move. He didn't even blink. Another biker approached from behind, leaning close to Steven's ear. "What are you, some kind of Zen master? Say something, man." Steven wiped his mouth with the napkin. Perfect posture, not a hint of fear. "I said what I needed to say." The leader leaned in closer, invading his space. "You got a smart mouth for someone eating alone." Steven didn't break eye contact. "Walk away. Not worth it." The biker gang erupted in laughter. One of them shouted, "Oh, the old man has some attitude." Another chimed in, "Maybe he wants to get tossed around a bit." But their leader wasn't laughing. He was offended, not by insults, but by the fact that Steven wasn't intimidated. It punctured his ego like a needle to a balloon. He wanted a reaction. He craved one, and Steven wasn't giving it. So the leader stepped even closer and knocked Steven's hat off with the back of his hand. The hat fell to the floor with a soft thud. A gasp rippled through the diner. Steven didn't move for a full 3 seconds. He took one more sip of his coffee, placed the mug down carefully, and finally turned to face the biker fully. His eyes, calm, cold, razor-sharp, met the leader's. "Don't do that again," Steven said softly, almost like a whisper. But the quietness made it more dangerous. The leader snorted. "Or what? You gonna meditate me to death?" His men laughed again, but this time it felt forced. Something about Steven's composure unsettled them, even if they didn't want to admit it. The leader pointed to the hat on the ground. "Pick it up, old man. Show some respect." Steven looked at the hat, then back up at the leader. "I don't think you know what you're asking," he said. The entire diner felt the shift, like someone had just pulled the pin from a grenade but hadn't thrown it yet. The leader cracked his knuckles. "Maybe we need to teach you how things work around here." Steven sighed, more disappointed than afraid. "You really don't want to do that." The leader shoved him lightly, then harder. Then, with a smirk, he said, "Make me stop." The police sirens faded into the distance as the last biker was loaded into the van. Broken pride, fractured bones, and the painful memory of confronting the wrong man. That was all the gang had left. The crowd slowly dispersed, but many still whispered excitedly, replaying the events in their minds. Steven Seagal stood on the side of the road, calm as ever, breathing steadily as if the entire encounter had been nothing more than a warm-up exercise. Sophia finally exhaled the breath she had been holding. Her hands were still trembling slightly, and her heartbeat hadn't returned to normal. She approached Steven carefully, unsure if it was appropriate to break his quiet reflection. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Steven turned slightly and gave her a reassuring smile. "I'm fine. Happens more often than you'd think." "More often?" Sophia almost laughed in disbelief. "Do biker gangs usually try to run you off the road?" "Biker gangs, street punks, arrogant fighters who want to prove something," Steven shrugged. "People sometimes mistake calm for weakness." Sophia looked down at the pavement, replaying the moment Steven had stepped in front of the biker's bat with no hesitation, like a wall made of steel. "They picked the wrong person," she said. "They picked the wrong intention," Steven corrected. "Strength isn't the issue. Their hearts were filled with arrogance and cruelty. That always leads to trouble." Sophia admired how he spoke, not angry, not boastful, just grounded. She had always seen him as the action star, the martial artist with impossible reflexes, the man who could drop 10 fighters without breaking a sweat. But now she was seeing something deeper: discipline, control, and a kind of wisdom you couldn't fake. Before she could respond, a local police officer approached. "Sir," he said respectfully, "we've reviewed the security footage and witness statements. It's clear you acted in self-defense. And the gang? Well, they were already wanted for multiple assaults." Steven nodded. "I understand. Thank you for the update." The officer lowered his voice. "Honestly, I've never seen anything like what you did. Those men were armed. And you didn't just beat them, you neutralized them." "Violence should always be the last resort," Steven said calmly. "But when it comes, it must be decisive." The officer nodded and stepped away. Sophia looked at Steven with a new kind of curiosity. "You could have walked away. You could have let them fight each other. Why did you get involved?" "You didn't know me." Steven's expression softened. "People don't need to be connected for us to protect them. Strength with compassion, that's what martial arts teach." Sophia felt something in her chest. Gratitude, admiration, maybe something else. "Let me take you somewhere," Steven suddenly said. "Where?" she asked. "You'll see. The hidden dojo." Sophia followed him through winding side streets to a quiet neighborhood. Nestled between two large buildings was a small wooden gate, barely noticeable unless you knew where to look. Steven pushed it open, revealing a beautiful courtyard lit by hanging lanterns. There was a stillness to the place, a sacred silence. "This is where I train when I'm in the city," Steven said. "A private dojo. The public doesn't know about it." Sophia looked around in awe. "It's beautiful." He stepped inside, motioning for her to follow. The sound of water trickling from a stone fountain filled the space. Smooth wooden floors spread across the training hall, decorated with calligraphy scrolls and traditional weapons on the walls. "I wanted to show you something," he said. He walked toward a rack of bakkin, wooden swords, and handed one to her. "I don't know how to use this," she said nervously. "That's why you're here," he replied with a small grin. "Let me teach you something simple." He guided her hand placement, adjusting her elbows gently. His presence was warm and steady, like he was transferring some of his calm into her. "Balance is the foundation," he said, "not just in combat, but in life." He stepped behind her, lightly touching her shoulders to align her posture. "You carry tension here," he observed. "I was almost run over by a biker gang today," she laughed awkwardly. "And yet you're still standing," he said. "That means you're stronger than you think." Sophia looked at him, realizing he wasn't talking about physical strength. For the next hour, he taught her basic forms and movements, slow, deliberate motions that felt almost like meditation. The chaos of earlier drifted further and further away. A quiet revelation. When they finally sat down, breathing softly, Sophia spoke. "You didn't just save me today," she said quietly. "You changed something inside me." Steven raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "I was scared when they surrounded me. I felt powerless. But watching you, it made me realize that fear doesn't have to control everything. Strength isn't about fighting. It's about standing your ground." Steven nodded thoughtfully. "Exactly." She looked down at her hands. "I want to learn more. I want to learn how to protect myself." Steven smiled. "Then come here tomorrow morning. I'll train you." Sophia's eyes widened. "Seriously?" "Seriously. Everyone deserves to feel capable." There was a small pause, a warm, comfortable silence. Sophia finally said, "Thank you for everything." Steven gave a small bow. "The road brought you here for a reason." Outside, the night was calm. No engines, no shouting, no danger. Only a peaceful sky and the soft glow of lanterns. And somewhere deep inside, Sophia felt that her life had just shifted in a way she couldn't fully understand yet. The next morning, Sophia woke earlier than she had in months. She barely slept, not because of fear, but because of anticipation. Something inside her had shifted overnight, like a spark had been lit, and she didn't want it to fade. She dressed in comfortable clothes and headed out. The streets were quieter than usual, the early sunlight painting everything gold. As she reached the hidden courtyard, She paused for a moment, taking in the serenity of the place. The wooden gate creaked softly as she pushed it open. Inside, Steven Seagal stood in the center of the dojo, already stretching, his movements slow and deliberate. Though he must have been up for hours, he looked calm, composed, and full of energy. "You're on time," he said, giving her a small nod of approval. "I didn't want to waste a second," Sophia replied, walking toward him. Steven motioned for her to stand beside him. "Today, you begin not just training, but transformation." She swallowed hard, feeling both nervous and excited. Lesson 1. The mind before the body. Steven sat cross-legged on the polished wooden floor, and Sophia copied him. "What you experienced yesterday," he began, "was chaos. And in chaos, the mind is the first thing to collapse. If the mind breaks, the body follows." Sophia nodded slowly. She remembered the fears so vividly, the rapid heartbeat, the trembling hands. "So how do you stop the mind from collapsing?" she asked. "You don't stop it," Steven corrected. "You train it." He closed his eyes, demonstrating controlled breathing. Sophia followed his rhythm. Slow inhale, steady exhale. Within seconds, the dojo felt lighter, the air calmer. "Control your breath," he said softly. "And you control your thoughts. Control your thoughts, and nothing can break you." For the first time, Sophia felt her nerves easing, replaced by a surprising sense of strength. Lesson 2. Motion with purpose. Once their breathing exercise ended, Steven stood and signaled for her to join him. "Today, you learn movement," he said. "Not fighting, just movement." He began demonstrating smooth, circular motions, every step deliberate, every shift gentle yet powerful. Unlike the sharp martial arts styles she knew from movies, this was fluid, almost like water flowing around obstacles. "This is Aikido," he explained. "It teaches you to redirect force, not clash with it." Sophia mirrored his motions, stumbling at first, but Steven guided her patiently, adjusting a shoulder, repositioning her hand, correcting her stance with small, precise touches. "Relax your shoulders," he said. "Breathe with your steps. Feel the ground beneath you." Little by little, her movements improved. They practiced for over an hour. Sweat rolled down Sophia's face, but she didn't mind. Every corrected mistake felt like progress. Every successful motion sent a rush of confidence through her. "You learn fast," Steven observed. "Because I trust you," she blurted out before thinking. He raised an eyebrow, but didn't comment. Instead, he handed her a bamboo staff. "Let's test your balance." Lesson 3. The first test. Sophia held the staff awkwardly, feeling its weight shift in her hands. Steven stepped in front of her. "Try to strike me," he said calmly. She blinked. "What? I can't hit you." "You won't," he replied. "But you need to learn what it feels like to attack, so you understand what it feels like when someone attacks you." Her grip tightened. She hesitated. "Whenever you're ready," he said gently. Taking a deep breath, she lifted the staff and swung, slowly, almost apologetically. Steven deflected it with a simple twist of his wrist. Again, she tried harder. Steven redirected the strike effortlessly. He wasn't even moving his feet. After a few more attempts, she grew frustrated. "It's impossible to hit you." "Not impossible," Steven said. "Just not today." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "But your courage? That showed up. That matters more than the strike." His words softened her frustration, replacing it with determination. An uninvited visitor. As they finished training, Steven suddenly grew still. His eyes narrowed slightly. "You feel that?" he asked. "Feel what?" Sophia looked around, confused. Steven stepped toward the entrance of the dojo. "Someone's here." A moment later, a tall man in a leather jacket appeared at the gate. He had a cut above one eyebrow, still swollen, and a bruise on his jaw. He looked familiar. Sophia froze. It was one of the bikers from yesterday. Steven didn't move aggressively, but his posture sharpened subtly, alert, ready. The biker raised both hands. "I'm not here to fight," he said quickly. "I just needed to talk." Sophia's breath caught in her throat. Memories of being surrounded, threatened, helpless, they rushed back instantly. Steven positioned himself slightly in front of her, protective. "Talk," he said in a low, controlled voice. The biker swallowed hard. "I came to apologize." Sophia stared at him in disbelief. "You don't have to believe me," he continued. "But those guys I hang with, they're done. After what happened yesterday, they're terrified of crossing you again." Steven didn't react. The biker took a deep breath. His voice softened. "But me? I'm not afraid. I'm ashamed. You could have killed me, but you didn't." He looked at Sophia. "And I'm sorry for scaring you. You didn't deserve that." Sophia felt a strange mix of relief, confusion, and sympathy. Steven finally spoke. "An apology means nothing without change." "I know," the biker said. "That's why I came alone." The dojo fell silent. Sophia stepped forward slightly. "Why tell us this?" The biker hesitated, then said something none of them expected. "Because someone worse is coming." Sophia's heart stopped. Steven's eyes hardened. "Explain." The biker exhaled. "The gang has a leader. You haven't met him yet, but he knows about yesterday. And he's not the forgiving type." Sophia's pulse quickened. "Who is he?" she whispered. The biker lowered his voice. "His name is Dalton Vex, and he wants revenge." For a long moment, silence swallowed the dojo. Sophia felt her heartbeat echoing in her ears as the biker's warning settled over the room like a heavy fog. Dalton Vex. Even the name felt dangerous, sharp, cold, jagged. Steven stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "This Dalton," he said calmly. "What does he want?" The biker rubbed his bruised jaw. "Revenge and reputation. Losing face in front of the gang is everything to him. When he heard one of his guys was dropped in 2 seconds flat, he lost it. He didn't take it as a defeat. He took it as a challenge." Sophia shivered. "A challenge against Steven?" The biker shook his head. "Not just him." His eyes flicked toward her. "You too." Sophia felt the breath leave her chest. "Me? What?" "Because you embarrassed his boys. Even standing up to them was enough. Dalton doesn't like anyone making his crew look weak. And now he thinks coming after you will force Steven into a fight." Steven's jaw tightened. "That won't happen," he said firmly, stepping protectively closer to her. The biker raised his hands. "Hey, I'm not here to start anything. I'm trying to avoid a war. Dalton, he's not like the others. He's ex-military, heavily trained, unstable. The kind of guy who enjoys pain, his and anyone else's." Sophia's stomach twisted as her imagination raced. "What should we do?" she whispered to Steven. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at the biker. "When is he coming?" The biker hesitated. "Honestly, I think he's already on his way, preparing for the inevitable." After the biker left, Sophia sat on the edge of the dojo floor, feeling the weight of everything pressing against her. Steven remained standing in the center, arms crossed, thinking. "Why does this keep happening?" she murmured. "Why can't trouble just stay away from us?" Steven walked over and knelt in front of her, so they were eye to eye. "Because life doesn't test the weak," he said quietly. "It tests the ones who have the potential to rise." Sophia shook her head. "I'm not strong. Yesterday, I was terrified. And today," Steven said, "you showed up. That's strength." She looked up at him, surprised. "Do you really think I can face someone like Dalton Vex?" "Not yet," he admitted honestly. "But you will." He stood, extending a hand. "Come on. We don't have much time." Training under pressure. Steven wasted no time. The air inside the dojo thickened with intensity as he began a new phase of training. "Today," he said, handing her 2 wooden practice knives, "you learn how to survive when someone wants to break you." Sophia's eyes widened. "Break me?" Steven nodded. "Dalton won't fight with honor. He'll use fear, violence, chaos." He paused, then added, "And that's exactly what you'll learn to handle." Her hands trembled as she held the knives, but she nodded. Steven stepped behind her, guiding her wrists. "First rule, control the blade. You control it, you control the fight." He demonstrated a quick wrist rotation, flipping the knife into a reverse grip. Sophia tried it, clumsy at first, but repeated it until the motion flowed smoothly. Good, he said. Now again. They practiced endlessly, grips, footwork, body angles. Steven didn't raise his voice or rush her. He simply corrected her with patience and precision. Sweat dripped from her forehead, her breath quickened, but every minute she improved. Finally, Steven set the knives aside. Now we work on fear. Sophia blinked. How do you train fear? He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You face it. Suddenly, without warning, Steven lunged, not with force, but with enough speed to make her flinch. Her heart slammed in her chest. She stumbled back. Again, he said calmly. He moved toward her again, fast, but controlled. She flinched less. Again. Each time, Steven's movements grew sharper, closer, more intense. Her breathing grew ragged. Her body wanted to run, but something inside her refused. On the 10th attempt, she didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't fear. Steven stopped inches from her face, his eyes studying hers. There, he said softly. That's the beginning. Sophia exhaled shakily. I did it. You're not the same person you were yesterday, Steven said. And by tonight, you'll be even stronger. The warning sign. As they finished training, a loud engine roared in the distance. Not one engine. Several. Sophia's pulse spiked. Is that? Steven raised a hand. Stay calm. The sound grew louder, aggressive, unrestrained, like thunder approaching. 6, 7, maybe more motorcycles. Dalton's here, Steven said quietly. Sophia felt the air in the dojo shift. The peaceful courtyard that had felt like a sanctuary now felt like the eye of a storm. Steven turned to her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. Listen to me carefully, he said. This is your test. Not of fighting, of courage. Her throat tightened. What if I'm not ready? You are, Steven said. But you don't have to do anything alone. I'm right here. The engines cut off abruptly, followed by heavy footsteps. A cold voice echoed from outside. Steven Seagal, come out. We need to talk. Sophia froze. Steven looked toward the door, then back at her, calm, steady, unshaken. It's time. The courtyard fell completely silent. Sophia felt her heartbeat pounding in her chest as the voice echoed again. Cold, commanding, dripping with arrogance. Steven Seagal, I won't ask twice. Steven stepped toward the dojo entrance with calm, measured strides. His face didn't show fear, only focus, the kind of focus that appears right before a storm hits. He glanced back at Sophia. Stay behind me. Watch everything. And remember what we practiced. Sophia nodded, though her body trembled. Her palms were sweaty, her breath shaky, but she followed. When Steven slid open the gate, the scene on the other side sucked the air straight out of her lungs. A dozen motorcycles were parked in a semicircle. Bikers stood around them, tall, tattooed, armed with metal pipes, chains, even machetes. Leather vests marked them all as part of the same crew. But the one in the center drew everyone's attention and fear. Dalton Vex. He stepped forward with slow, heavy boots. Taller than anyone else, built like a brawler, with cold blue eyes that looked like they enjoyed hurting people. A thick scar ran across his cheek, giving his expression a permanent sneer. He smirked at Steven. Didn't think you'd actually come out. Steven's voice remained calm. You're on someone else's property. State your business. Dalton chuckled darkly. You humiliated my boys. Put 2 in the hospital. Now I'm here to return the favor. Sophia felt her stomach twist. Steven didn't flinch. This doesn't concern the girl, he said. But Dalton's eyes flicked to Sophia, and a sick smile stretched across his face. Oh, it concerns her, he said, pointing casually. She talked back. She stood tall, and that bruised some egos. I can't let that kind of disrespect spread. Sophia felt a chill crawl down her spine. Steven stepped half an inch forward, just enough to block Dalton's view of her. You won't touch her. Dalton's grin widened. Is that a challenge, old man? A few bikers laughed. One spat on the ground. But Steven didn't react. He simply breathed. Slow and steady. The bikers move in. Dalton raised a hand, and 6 bikers stepped forward immediately like trained attack dogs. Well, Dalton taunted. You going to show us what you're made of? Steven didn't answer. He gently put his arm out, guiding Sophia backward behind the dojo gate. Stay there, he whispered. No matter what you see. Sophia's throat tightened. Steven, trust me. She stopped, forcing herself to breathe slowly just as he had taught her. Her fear didn't vanish, but it didn't control her anymore. Steven stepped into the open courtyard, facing the 6 men. Dalton crossed his arms. Let's start the show. The first biker lunged with a chain swinging wildly. Steven slipped to the side effortlessly, calm, almost casual, and the chain sliced through empty air. In a single motion, Steven used the biker's momentum, trapped his wrist, and flipped him onto the gravel. He hit the ground with a thud and didn't get back up. The second and third bikers rushed together. Steven pivoted smoothly, deflecting a punch, redirecting another's shove. It wasn't a fight. It was a demonstration of perfect control. In seconds, both men were on the ground groaning. Sophia watched with wide eyes. Every movement Steven made matched what he had taught her, flowing, redirecting, never clashing, always guiding. A fourth biker tried attacking from behind, but Steven stepped aside as if he had eyes on the back of his head, and the man stumbled forward. Steven tapped him behind the knee, and the biker collapsed. Dalton's smirk faded. The 6th attacker, the largest of the group, charged with a metal bat raised high. Steven calmly caught the bat mid-swing, twisted it from the biker's grip, and tossed it away like it weighed nothing. Then he pushed the man back with a firm palm strike to the chest, sending him stumbling into the dirt. Silence. Only Dalton remained standing. His jaw twitched. His eyes darkened. You're going to regret that, he growled. Dalton versus Steven. Dalton cracked his knuckles. I was hoping you'd put up a fight. Now I get to break something worth breaking. He stepped forward slowly, each footstep heavy. Sophia's pulse raced. She wanted to run, to scream, to stop this, but Steven's earlier words echoed in her mind. Control your breath. Control your thoughts. Her fear eased just enough to keep her steady. Dalton charged suddenly, faster than she expected for a man of his size. Steven caught the attack, deflecting a brutal hook with a circular motion. Dalton swung again, harder, heavier. Steven stepped aside, redirecting the blow. But Dalton didn't stop. He fought like a wild animal. Heavy punches, rapid strikes, knees, elbows. Raw aggression mixed with military precision. And for the first time, Steven had to work. His movements stayed fluid, but Dalton's sheer force pushed him back a few steps. Dust rose around them as they clashed. The watching bikers cheered for their leader. Dalton grabbed Steven's shirt, pulling him forward with surprising strength. Steven broke the grip, but stumbled slightly. Sophia gasped. Dalton laughed. What's wrong, legend? He taunted. Getting slow? Steven didn't reply. His jaw tightened. His focus sharpened. Dalton swung again. A brutal, heavy punch meant to break bone. Steven ducked, redirected, and drove his palm hard into Dalton's stomach. Dalton staggered, surprised. It wasn't enough to finish him, but it was enough to change everything. Steven adjusted his stance. Dalton wiped blood from his mouth and grinned. Finally, he said, now we're having fun. Sophia's realization. Sophia watched, shaking but refusing to hide. Her fear was still there, but something else grew stronger. Resolve. Dalton wasn't just a bully. He was a monster who needed to be stopped. And Steven wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for her future, for her courage. She clenched her fists, breathing steady, remembering every step, every lesson, every moment Steven had prepared her for. Dalton roared and charged at Steven again. The real fight was just beginning. The final stand. Dalton lunged at Steven with renewed fury, fists swinging like hammers. The courtyard shook with the force of every strike. Steven blocked, redirected, absorbed the impact. But Dalton was relentless, feeding on his own rage like a wildfire that refused to die. A vicious elbow strike grazed Steven's cheek, drawing a thin line of blood. Sophia gasped. Dalton saw her reaction and laughed. "That's right, sweetheart. Watch closely. Your hero's about to break." Steven didn't flinch. His breathing remained steady, but Sophia could see the strain. Dalton was bigger, younger, fueled by pure aggression. Steven's calm precision was holding him together, but not forever. Dalton swung again. Steven dodged, but Dalton caught his shoulder and slammed him against the wooden post of the gate. The impact echoed across the courtyard. Dust swirled in the air. Steven stumbled to one knee. Dalton cracked his neck, stepping closer for the finishing blow. "That's what I thought," he growled. "All legend. No power." The bikers cheered loudly. Sophia's chest tightened. She wanted to scream, run, do something. But Steven's voice echoed in her mind. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's what you do despite it. And suddenly, she knew. This fight wasn't just Steven's. It was hers too. Sophia steps forward. Dalton raised his fist. Sophia stepped between them. "Stop." The entire courtyard froze. Steven's eyes widened. Sophia, no. But she stood tall. Her knees trembled. Her hands shook. But she didn't back down. Dalton lowered his fist, surprised. Then he smirked. "Well, look who finally grew a spine." "You want to hurt someone," Sophia said, her voice shaking but loud. "Then hurt me." Steven tried to stand, but Sophia held out a hand. Steady, confident. "Steven, trust me." Dalton laughed. "You? Fight me? Don't make me laugh." Sophia exhaled slowly, controlled her breath, centered her thoughts. Everything Steven had taught her flowed back into her body, her stance, her footing, the calm that had taken her days to build. "I'm not here to fight you," she said. "I'm here to face you." Dalton blinked, confused. "Face me? And what does that mean?" "It means," Sophia said softly, "that I'm not afraid of you anymore." Those words landed like a punch. Dalton's smirk faded. Fear. It was the foundation of his power. It was how he controlled everyone around him. But this girl, the one he expected to tremble, was standing tall, breathing steady, refusing to break. Dalton snarled and grabbed her wrist. The bikers leaned forward. Steven tensed. Sophia didn't freeze. Instead, she moved, just as Steven taught her, not with force, but with flow. She twisted her wrist, redirecting Dalton's grip. His own momentum carried him forward, and Sophia stepped aside. Dalton stumbled, surprised. A few bikers murmured. Sophia held her ground. Dalton roared and rushed at her again, swinging clumsily in his frustration. Sophia pivoted, dodged, and redirected his arm. Dalton's feet tangled, and he hit the ground hard, face first into the dirt. Gasps filled the courtyard. Dalton scrambled up, furious, humiliated. "That's enough," Steven said suddenly. He stood, wiping dust from his face, his presence shifting from defensive to absolute authority. Dalton froze. Steven stepped beside Sophia. "You fought well," he said to her quietly. She breathed out shakily. "I just did what you taught me." "No," Steven corrected. "You did more. You faced your fear. That was the real battle." Dalton charged one last time, roaring in rage. Steven simply sidestepped, caught Dalton's wrist, turned his momentum, and threw him hard. A clean, precise Aikido throw. Dalton slammed into the ground, groaning, unable to stand. The fight was over. A heavy silence followed. One by one, the bikers lowered their weapons. Then, surprisingly, they stepped back. Not out of fear, out of respect. They had seen something today, Steven's mastery, yes, but more importantly, Sophia's courage. A kind of courage their own leader didn't have. Dalton's most trusted man spoke first. "Boss, it's over." And with that, they walked away, leaving Dalton lying in the dust. Aftermath. Sophia exhaled, her entire body trembling with adrenaline and relief. Stephen placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said. "No," she whispered. "We did." The sun dipped low, painting the dojo in soft gold. The courtyard felt peaceful again, almost sacred. For the first time in her life, Sophia felt powerful. Not because she fought, but because she defeated her fear. And Stephen saw it too. "Today," he said gently, "you became unbreakable." Sophia smiled, tired, shaky but proud. A new chapter of her life had just begun.